Well, hello there. Welcome to Prepper Nation. This is John. Lots to talk about today. Very quickly, thank you, Nellis Heltzer and Sheila Wargo. Ladies, thank you very, very, very much for your generous support of this channel and of this platform. So again, lots to talk about. This morning, I guess this is going to post before lunchtime. I don't really know. It may be a lunchtime post or something like that. But we're going to get it in as we can get it in. A couple of very important topics. We have to start with the Middle East. Excuse me. We have to start with the Middle East. Things are heating up in the Middle East. We were just talking about this on the last video that we posted. How things are going to continue to escalate and escalate and escalate. And again, no crystal ball over here, son. It's not a matter of predicting the future via a crystal ball. It's a matter of predicting the future by understanding what is taking place right now. What is taking place right now, as many of you know, our financial institutions here in the United States and many of our allies are crashing to the ground. They cannot just randomly let these things crash to the ground. They need an excuse. They need something to point to and say, our financial institutions burned to the ground because of this war or this war. And as I've said here on the channel, we being the United States and our allies, we've been looking for a dancing partner for a while now. We've been trying to go to war on virtually every continent. Anybody that's remotely interested, the United States is all in. They're pushing chips in. We tried to bait Russia into this for the longest time, and they're just not interested in it. They know we are collapsing. They know there's no reason to go to war with the United States. They can go to war with Ukraine, as they've done, sit back, drink sweet tea, and watch as the SWIFT system countries collapse. That's why the BRICS system countries exist. But we got to get to the Middle East here. So things have escalated since the last video. Okay. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is en route to replace the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group. Now, on the surface, and I'm talking about in the Middle East there, that entire region, on the surface, it just appears, we're subbing these guys in so these folks can get some rest. This is typically what happens. But Defensive Secretary Lloyd Austin put out a statement through the Pentagon and said, along with the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, they're deploying additional ballistic missile capable cruisers and destroyers. So not only are they swapping out, they're loading for bear. They are anticipating something big is about to go down in that entire region. And again, they're probably very excited because we've been looking for a dancing partner for a very, very long time. And we may have finally found one with Iran because as we had talked about a little bit last time around, Iran had a couple of its leaders, not so good individuals, taken out by Israel, but with the help of the United States. Whether it was the United States weapons, perhaps intelligence from the United States, that it was a joint effort by Israel and its allies. And Iran knows this too, and Iran is pissed off about it. They've made no bones about it, and they've threatened, perhaps even a ground invasion of Israel. They say bad things are coming. When I heard that, I said, well, Israel's ready. They're actually on high alert right now. They are expecting conflict in that region. The United States, again, is deploying a lot of assets over there, additional assets as well, expecting conflict in that region. I said, if I was Iran, I would try to strike here on soil here. You want to strike where it's not expected. And it's not like, and I don't want to harp on this too much because you folks already know the score here, but it's not like our borders are very secure. It's not like our infrastructure is rock solid. There are a lot of things that can go down and cause chaos here with very minimal cost from an outside player. And so I could not help but to think, Iran, of course, is in cahoots with a lot of countries, including Russia, that they've not at least considered this option, but I digress. And as I heard all of this news and as I saw the threats by Iran and the Pentagon releasing all of this, it began to trend on social media, and people were saying, World War III begins in the Middle East this time, not in Europe. So I'm going to ask you before we move forward, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think World War III is getting ready to start in the Middle East? Do you think it is going to start in Europe? Do you think it's already underway, perhaps, with the invasion, Russia and Ukraine and yada, yada, yada? Or do you think we're not going to see a World War III? Curious if that's your position. I would love to know why. And yes, I do read all of the comments. I'm just saying. So, how do both conflicts end? Regional wars now, I'm hearing they seem to switch the terminology. It was conflicts for the longest time. Well, the Russian conflict or the Russian Ukrainian special operation, now they're switching, the wording to regional war. I'm seeing that a lot in mainstream media, here in the United States at least. And it almost feels like they're laying the groundwork and they're conditioning people's minds here to think war. Because if we see a wide-scale war, people are already going to be, I don't want to say warmed up to the idea, but they're already going to be kind of sort of conditioned for it a little bit. And it's not going to come as much of a shock, even though, when they start drafting, that'll be a shock. Sorry, young folks, but that would take place. So when do both of these regional conflicts or regional wars actually end? And how do they end? Again, the Middle East, as we were talking about last time, this is like an ongoing off again, on again war for thousands of years. I don't see this one ending anytime soon. I don't care how many aircraft strike groups you send to that region. It's all been tried before. And the issue there is the ideologies do not match up. Everybody's not on the same page in the Middle East, and you're not going to force them. In much the same way, I know a lot of you folks are Christian here, and that's awesome, that listen to this program. Not all of you, but, it's a personal belief. That's your business. In much the same way that nobody is going to change what you believe spiritually. Many of the people in the Middle East feel this way as well, and they're zealots about it, and they're not going to be bullied into different beliefs or different ideologies. And so this is one of the many, many reasons why we've seen thousands of years of wars and conflicts, whatever you want to call them, in the Middle East. But how do they end? When do they end? What about the one in Russia? You guys let me know in the chat, in the comments. I appreciate that. We got to switch gears here after I take a little chipmunk swig or a little beaver swig of Gatorade. It's another serious topic. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a minute. If you're in a car, make sure you're buckled up for this one. If you're at home, maybe sit down. If you've got something on the stove cooking, what a concept in 2024. I'm not talking about microwaving. I'm talking about actually cooking. Maybe make sure the stuff is off the stove, because not everybody's going to like this discussion coming up, but it's a discussion that needs to happen for both sides, the left wing and the right wing. Which brings us to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is now officially the Democratic nominee. What are your thoughts on that before we move forward? Gotta know. I gotta know. So it's strange to me. All right. And this is, I cannot Kamala Harris. I could knock her specifically for her record the last 4 years, the fact that she's in charge of the border and the border's a mess, and all kinds of other things that she's been affiliated with. But the biggest thing that comes to mind, what happened to democracy? I get that we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, but I mean to the left wing, to that party, the party that screams democracy 24/7, from the rooftops of their buildings and apartments and stuff. We're a democracy. Well, what happened to democracy? Because you had your primaries. Kamala Harris was pulling roughly 2 or 3% of the Democratic vote. Democrats didn't like this lady. They didn't want this lady. They didn't vote for this lady to be the candidate. But because Joe Biden has announced that he is dropping out, the establishment, the swamp, decided Kamala Harris is going to be the candidate. That's not democracy, folks. If you're listening from the left wing, that's not democracy. That's not the thing that you've been screaming about. In fact, it's quite the opposite. But the pro-democracy crowd is cheering now for Kamala Harris. Oh, she's fantastic. Well, she wasn't fantastic a few months ago when you were voting in the primaries. You couldn't stand her then. This is more, in my opinion, more of a hatred for Trump and blue no matter who. How many of us have heard that? Blue no matter who. In that case, blue no matter who, sorry folks, that's not democracy either. I don't think you understand what the word means if you're part of that crowd. But I digress once again. When it was announced that Harris was she had secured enough votes via the swamp to become the nominee and be gifted all of the money and be the heir apparent without the say of the people, trending all over social media. This began to be the trend, and it's still on there a lot, but this was trending number 1, number 2, across various social media platforms. People were arguing back and forth about Harris's race. Right? One side is like, oh man, this is fantastic. She's the first female person of color to be the nominee. And then, of course, a lot of right-wingers were like, nah, she's not. She's part Indian, I believe. She has one parent from India and one that is Caucasian. And they're arguing, they're screaming back and forth. And on social media, man, people are posting like her older family photos to try and prove what her race is. You've got Twitter investigative reporters out here throwing random documents, smoking gun, silver bullet documents, birth certificates. They're throwing these down. And I'm watching this chaos ensue. And I'm thinking to myself, I was actually laying in the bed when this was happening on my phone and I saw this. It's just like we talked about last time, screaming matches back and forth. No, she's this color. Ah! And then the other side, no, I've got proof. Look at these, pieces of paper right here. Ah! And I'm thinking to myself, does it really matter one way or the other? As an American voter, I'm just laying there and I'm like, does it really matter? Why? Where's the rage coming from? And the folks on the right are like, yeah, but they're lying about her race. They're making it about identity politics. Well, maybe I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But why are you surprised? Is this truly your first rodeo? You don't know that politicians lie? You don't know that political parties pander and they lie and they play identity politics? Why are you surprised? Where's the rage coming from? I don't want to play identity politics. And here's why. My opinion, let me know what you think. No votes have swapped either way. Amongst all of the yelling and the screaming and the document drops and the smoking gun, silver bullet type of stuff, nobody has switched their vote. Nobody that was going to vote blue no matter who has seen something on Twitter that said, you know what? She's lying about her race. I'm riding with Trump. Nobody has switched to Donald Trump because of this. And guess what? Nobody that was voting for Donald Trump prior to this has swapped and said, oh man, that's awesome. She's a person of color. I think I'm going to vote for her. No. People knew years ago who they were going to be voting for. They knew the Trump comeback was going to be inevitable. And one crowd said, we're voting for Trump. He's going to save this country. And another crowd has always been never Trump, vote blue no matter who. Literally no votes have changed from this. It's all nonsense. All of the identity politics, it's all a huge distraction. It is a waste of time. I don't want to know what her actual race is because I don't really care what her actual race is. I'm talking about Harris. I want to know why Social Security is out of money. I want to know about real stuff. Why have people paid out of their checks their entire lives only to be told when they retire, well, about 60% is the best we can do because we're running out of money? How are you running out of money? Where's the accountability? Oh, we can't have accountability for that. We can't ask real questions because we're over here trying to prove where Kamala Harris was born. We're over here trying to prove that Trump gave hush money or whatever. Who cares? Can we please talk about real issues here in the United States of America? It's just crazy. I want to hear what the plan is to eliminate $35 trillion in debt that does not involve a world war. Are y'all getting that right now? If we were not arguing back and forth, both wings, both sides, if we were not arguing over race and race baiting and Trump's personal life, if we were not arguing over stupid things, and we could get together for 5 minutes, we could demand from our government, what is the plan? Why are we $35 trillion in debt? And what are you proposing that we are going to do to fix it? They don't want you asking real questions. This is why distractions happen, folks. It's not a random occurrence that people have been arguing for the past 3 days nonstop about Harris's racial identity. That was put out there to get people to argue. They don't want you asking, what has Harris done over the past 4 years? Besides wear a few pair of Chuck Taylors. What has she done? They don't want you asking real questions. I want to hear where both candidates stand on the Second Amendment. Face to face, asking them outright, where do you stand on the Second Amendment? No fence riding. Let me know. This is the kind of stuff I care about. Right? Because at the end of the day, you can get into identity politics. You may like the way Harris dances. You may say, oh, it's great that, they're saying she's a person of color, so I'm going to vote for her. Hopefully you're not a gun owner because they're coming for those. Okay? And Trump right now is catching some heat as well from the Libertarian Party because he's not been strong enough on the Second Amendment. These are the things that we need to be asking candidates instead of slandering one another. and screaming at one another online. It's crazy to me. Don't we have real issues in America? That's all I'm asking. Folks, a message this morning or again around lunchtime, who knows? It ain't exactly a multi-million-dollar operation over here, son. We need to be better as American voters. Now, for the people that don't vote, that's fine. Go buy you some pinto beans and clutch your rifle and get ready, I guess. But for the people that are voting, we need to be better across the board because we need to demand better. And we're not going to be able to demand better until we come together for 5 minutes. We do not have to agree with each other on everything. But we have to be Americans for 5 minutes. And we have to take the finger pointing out of each other's faces. And we have to, in unison, point to the government, to the swamp, and say, what is going on? Because this game that you're running, we're sick and tired of it. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments section. God bless each and every one of you. And again, Nellis, Sheila, you ladies are freaking awesome. Love you. Y'all take care and God bless.